sobre banco de dados na nuvem para a prova de arquiteto de soluções da AWS, que é a certificação que eu estou estudando hoje nessa série de vídeos que eu já falei sobre isso. Então, basicamente, você vai me ver estudando, enquanto eu também vou compartilhar um pouco do meu aprendizado com vocês e da forma como eu estudo. E eu tenho aqui um simulado aberto aqui, já vou iniciar aqui esse simulado. E aqui nós vou ver aqui as aulas e vou tentando responder também. E aqui tem parte dos slides. Então vamos lá.
IAM conditions and what they can imply. Doing analytics with SQL or into this section on databases. So I'm doing a quick intro because at the exam you will have to choose the right book. Hello and welcome to this section on databases. So I'm doing a quick intro because at the exam you will have to choose the right database for your workload, and there are a lot of managed databases on AWS to choose from.
Ele começa aqui com uma breve introdução falando sobre como escolher o banco de dados corretamente.
Is it read heavy? Is it balanced workload? What throughput does it need? Is it going to change or fluctuate during the day? How much data is going to be stored and for how long? Will it grow? What's the average object size?
Escolher de acordo com a tua arquitetura.
What about data durability?
Se você precisa de muita leitura, muita gravação, ou se é bem balanceado,
what is the data model?
Quantidade de dados que você quer armazenar, como esses dados serão armazenados, durabilidade dos dados, a fonte de verdade dos dados, requisitos de latência, quantidade de usuários simultâneos, modelo de dados, se é estruturado ou não, se é NoSQL, se é um banco de dados SQL.
Dimensions and the kind of avenues the questions can be geared towards for helping you choose the right database. But don't worry, we will see all the different databases in this section and summarize them. So first we have the RDBMS databases. That means you're using SQL or you want to do online transaction processing. So you have RDS
esse slide mostra as vantagens e desvantagens de vários tipos de bancos de dados.
Don't worry, I'm going to deep dive in all these databases so you don't have to remember everything. Then we have the category of the NoSQL databases. So NoSQL is going to be more flexible usually, but you don't have join capabilities and you don't have the SQL query language in general, okay? There can be exceptions. And again, they will be discussed one by one. So we have DynamoDB, we have Elasticache, we have Neptune, DocumentDB, and Keyspaces, and there
Já tem uma pergunta aqui, qual banco de dados ajuda com dataset relacional?
Then we have object storage, so this is a
dataset relacional é RDS, Relational Database Service.
To store backups and archives.
Os outros são não
then
relacionais.
We have data warehousing for SQL, doing analytics with SQL or business intelligence, BI. So we have Redshift.
Qual banco de dados provê você com cache, capacidade de cache, com a API do Redis?
So we have the OpenSearch database to include some free text and do unstructured searches on your data.
Cache que é
Graph databases, so to display relationships between your data sets. This is Amazon Neptune. We have ledger databases to have a list and a ledger.
Você quer migrar Mongo para cloud.
QLDB, so Content Ledger Database.
Mongo é DocumentDB.
Types of database for Amazon TimeStream.
Errado.
And that's it. We may have more database types and more databases.
Tá. Eu não li a questão toda aqui. Ele está falando de serverless. Então, serverless vai com DynamoDB.
They will be discussed at depth in the following section, which is the data and analytics section. Okay, so that's it for an overview. Don't worry, you don't have to remember anything from what I said. It's just to
you are looking to perform online transaction. OLTP é RDS.
To start discussing the databases one by one.
Aqui tá, você precisa de autoscaling,
DB2,
autoscaling.
You have the custom version of RDS. In Amazon RDS, you need to provision
an RDS dados que provê
as well as an EBS volume type.
Autoscaling
is provisioned, although you have auto-scaling capability for the storage layer. Amazon RDS supports read replica
Não é o
to scale
Neptune,
read
Neptune é para
capabilities. So
grafo.
if you have applications that need to run analytics
É o
against a
Aurora.
production database, it is much better to create a read replica. And for high availability purposes, you can use the multi-AZ to have a standby database, although that database is just here for, in case a disaster strikes, you cannot use it to perform queries against it. Security for your RDS database is done through IAM, so you can use, for example, username and password to connect to your database, but also you can use IAM Authenticate. Hello and welcome to this section on databases. So I'm doing a quick intro because at the exam you will have to choose the right database for your workload, and there are a lot of managed. Hello and welcome to this
Então,
section on
voltando aqui, eu parei
databases.
para
So I'm doing
responder
a
as
quick intro
perguntas.
because at the exam you will have to choose the right
Aqui,
database
nesse
for your
slide,
workload,
é sobre
and there are a lot
como
of
escolher
managed
o
databases
banco
on
de dados
AWS to choose
correto
from.
para o problema que
So
você quer
it's
resolver.
mainly based on the architecture the question is asking. And so is it write heavy? Is it read heavy? Is it a balanced workload? Hello and welcome to this section on databases. So I'm doing a quick intro because at the exam you will have to choose the right database for your workload. And there are a lot of managed databases on AWS to choose from.
A AWS
So it's
oferece
mainly
várias
based
opções
on
de
the
banco de
architecture
dados,
the
está aqui
question
todos
is
os
asking.
tipos
And so is
nessa
it
lista.
write heavy? Is it read heavy? Is it
E
balanced
qual
workload?
problema
What
ele
does it
endereça.
need? Is it going to change or fluctuate
Que
during
fala,
the
por
day?
exemplo,
How much data is going to be stored and for
dados
how long?
relacionados a
Will it
tempo,
grow?
time
What's the
stream,
average object size? How often are access and how are the
Ledger,
access? What about data durability?
AQLD, Amazon Quantum Ledger Database, Graph, Graph é o Neptune,
concurrent user requirements? What is the data model? How are you going to query
busca,
data?
Open
Joins,
Search,
is it
Data
structure? Is it
Warehouse, é o
schema
Redshift
structure?
ou
Do you need a
Athena.
strong schema or do you need more flexibility? Do you want to include reporting on top of your database or not? Do you want search? Do you want
Backup do banco de dados, de uma grande quantidade de dados, um backup que vai ser consultado com baixíssima frequência, que é um backup barato. Glacier, S3 Glacier. São respostas prontas para perguntas comuns da certificação. Banco de dados no SQL, DynamoDB, Elasticache, DocumentDB.
So first we have the RDBMS databases.
E aqui o tópico sobre quais bancos de dados corretos para determinadas situações. Grande quantidade de leitura, grande quantidade de gravação, workload balanceado, quantidade de storage, durabilidade dos dados e tudo mais.
So NoSQL is going to be more flexible usually.
Então, para a prova da certificação, a gente tem que saber quais problemas cada banco de dados resolve e qual escolher em determinadas situações. Vamos ver perguntas sobre isso.
Hello and welcome to this section. Hello and welcome to this section on databases. So I'm doing a quick intro because at the exam you will have to choose the right database for your workload, and there are a lot of managed databases on AWS to choose from. So it's mainly based on the architecture. Hello and welcome to this section on databases. So I'm doing a quick intro because at the exam you will have to choose the right database for your workload, and there are a lot of managed databases on AWS to choose from. So it's mainly based on the architecture the question is asking. And so is it write heavy? Is it read heavy? Is it a balanced workload? What throughput does it need? Is it going to change or fluctuate during the day? How much data is going to be stored and for how long? Will it grow? What's the average object size? How often are there access and how are they accessed? What about data durability? What is the source of truth for your data? Do you have any latency requirements, any concurrent user requirements? What is the data model? How are you going to create data? Joins, is it structure? Is it schema structure? Do you need a strong schema or do you need more flexibility? Do you want to include reporting on top of your database or not? Do you want search? Do you want a relational database or NoSQL? Are there any license costs? Do you want to switch to a cloud native database such as Aura and so on? So of course, based on the question, you have a different answer, but this is to give you the kind of dimensions and the kind of avenues the questions can be geared towards for helping you choose the right database. But don't worry, we will see all the different databases in this section and summarize them. So first we have the RDBMS databases. That means you're using SQL or you want to do online transaction processing. So you have RDS and Aurora, and these databases are great if you want to do joins. Don't worry, by the way, we'll go into a deep dive in all these databases, so you don't have to remember everything. And then we have the category of the NoSQL databases. So NoSQL is going to be more flexible usually, but you don't have join capabilities and you don't have the SQL query language in general. Okay, there can be exceptions. And again, they will be discussed one by one. So we have DynamoDB, we have Elasticache, we have Neptune, DocumentDB, and Keyspaces, and there may be new names for you, but don't worry, we will learn about them in this section. Then we have object storage. So this is a kind of database. Yes, Amazon S3 to store big objects, or Glacier to store backups and archives. Then we have data warehousing for SQL, doing analytics with SQL or business intelligence, BI. So we have Redshift, which is OLAP type of database, and Athena and EMR. We have the search type of databases. So we have the OpenSearch type of database to include some free text and do unstructured searches on your data. Graph databases, so to display relationships between your datasets. This is Amazon Neptune. We have ledger databases to have a list and a ledger of transactions. So we have the Amazon QLDB, so Quantum Ledger Database. We have the time series types of database for Amazon TimeStream, and that's it. We may have more database types and more databases that I will include in the section if need be, okay? So don't worry if some of these databases are not discussed in this section, they will be discussed at depth in the following section, which is the data and analytics section. Okay, so that's it for an overview. Don't worry, you don't have to remember anything from what I said. It's just to give you where we're coming from. And I will see you in the next lectures to start discussing the databases one by one. Authentication for some of them. You have security groups for network security on your Amazon RDS database, KMS for at-rest encryption, and you can have in-transit encryption using SSL and TLS. Now, if you wanted to do backups, you have the automated backup option, which is up to 35 days. And if you use that, you can do point-in-time restore to any point of time in these 35 days, and this will create a new database out of it. Or if you want to retain backups for longer-term recovery, then you would use a manual database snapshot. There is a manage and schedule maintenance, which will bring downtime into your database. So this is due to the fact that you have to provision it and that you have to update, AWS has to update at some point the database engine or the underlying EC2 instance for patches of security and so on. There is support for IAM authentication on RDS, and you can enforce it through the RDS proxy, and it has integration with Secrets Manager to manage the database credentials. If you wanted to have access to the underlying instance and customize it, then you can use the RDS custom option, and this is available for the Oracle and SQL Server type of databases. So the use cases of Amazon RDS is to store relational databases, for example, using the RDBMS or have an online transaction processing database, so OLTP, if you want to perform SQL queries on top of it, and transactions. Okay, so hopefully nothing is new for you here. I hope you liked it, and I will see you in the next lecture. So now let's do a summary of Amazon Aurora. So Aurora is a compatible API for two database engines, which are PostgreSQL and MySQL. And Aurora is a very special service because storage and compute are separate. So about storage, well, the data is stored in 6 replicas across 3 availability zones by default, and you cannot change this. Therefore, Aurora is highly available. On top of it, in case there's any issue with the storage, there's going to be a self-healing process behind the scenes happening. And if you wanted to increase the storage, no problem, there is auto-scaling out of the box. Now for the compute side, this is the actual database instances. They are clustered and they can be across multiple availability zones if you wanted to. And then if you had read replicas, you could auto-scale them as well to increase the load, to increase the capacity in case the load increases. Now, because you have a cluster of database instances, then you need custom endpoints to know where to write and read, and therefore you have a writer endpoint and a reader endpoint. You have the same security, monitoring, and maintenance features as RDS because, end of the day, they use kind of the same engine. And you need to know the backup and restore options for Aurora, which cannot summarize here, but I suggest you go back to that lecture if you ever need to. Now, some extra features you need to know about Aurora. The first one is Aurora Serverless. This is when you have unpredictable and intermittent workloads, but you don't need to do any capacity planning, so it is quite helpful in that use case. If you wanted to have a global database, you could use Aurora Global, and that gives you up to 16 database read instances in each region where your database is replicated. And the storage replication happens in less than 1 second, usually across regions, which is something you have to look out for at the exam.
RDS são bancos,
são
bancos de dados SQL como MySQL, Postgre, Oracle, SQL Server.
If you wanted to use a testing database or a staging database out of your production database, for example, you could use the Aurora database cloning feature to create a new Aurora cluster out of the existing one, and it is much faster than doing a snapshot and restoring it. So the use cases for Aurora are the same as RDS, but you have less maintenance, more flexibility, more performance, and more features out of the box, which makes Aurora a great choice. Okay, that's it. I hope you liked it, and I will see you in the next lecture. So we've learned about Amazon Elasticache beforehand, so let's just do a quick summary. So Elasticache is a managed Redis for Amazon, so it's a similar offering as RDS, but this time
ele é basicamente um
so what is the cache? Well, it's an in-memory data store,
pela
which gives you
AWS.
sub-millisecond latency when you want to read
de
data.
dados em memória.
So for this, you must provision an Elasticache instance type for your cache, and then you're good to go. So if you are using Redis, you can have support for clustering, multi-AZ, and read replicas for sharding. And you have security provision through IAM. You can use security groups. You have KMS at-rest encryption. And for Redis, you have Redis authentication. You have the same kind of features as RDS for backup, snapshot, and point-in-time restore. You have manage and schedule maintenance. And the most important thing that you need to remember for the exam is that if you decide to use Amazon Elasticache to perform some caching on top or combine with an RDS database, is that to use Elasticache, you need to modify your application code to leverage Elasticache. And so if the exam is asking you for a caching solution that does not require a code change, then Elasticache is not a good choice, okay? So the use cases for Elasticache are going to be key value store. When you do frequent read on top of your database, it's good to cache database queries. Also, if you have session data that needs to be stored for your users on your website, Elasticache is also a very good use case. And just so you know, you cannot use SQL on Elasticache. Okay, that's it for this lecture. I hope you liked it, and I will see you in the next lecture. So now let's do a summary of Amazon DynamoDB, which appears quite a bit at the exam. So DynamoDB is a proprietary technology from AWS. It's a managed serverless
Próximo da
NoSQL database
lista,
that provides you
DynamoDB.
out-of-the-box millisecond latency. You have two capacity modes you need to choose from. So one of them is the provision capacity with optional auto-scaling, which is great when you have a smooth type of workload that increases gradually over time or decreases gradually over time. Or you have the on-demand capacity mode, where you don't have to provision capacity, but it scales automatically for you, which is great if you have very unpredictable workloads or if you have sudden steep spikes of demand on your database. So DynamoDB can replace Elasticache as a key value store, and it's a great way to, for example, store session data for your website, combined with a TTL feature to expire a row after a specific amount of time. So DynamoDB is highly available. It is across multiple availability zones by default. The reads and the writes are fully decoupled, and it's possible for you to have transactions on top of DynamoDB tables. It is possible for you to create a read cache out of the box that is fully compatible with DynamoDB, which is a DAX cluster, DynamoDB Accelerator. And the ability, the particularity of it is that you get then microsecond read latency. So look for that in the exam. In terms of security, authentication, and authorization, everything is done through IAM. You have event processing capability on top of DynamoDB. So you can enable DynamoDB streams to stream all the changes happening into your database. And you can have an integration to invoke Lambda from the DynamoDB stream. Therefore, Lambda can be invoked for every single change in your DynamoDB table. The other option is, instead of sending the data to DynamoDB streams, you can send the data to Kinesis data streams. The advantage is that on top of it, you can use the Kinesis data firehose feature, or you can use any type of integration that leverages Kinesis data stream. For example, you can have longer term retention up to 1 year on Kinesis data streams. You have a global table feature on top of DynamoDB, which allows you to do active-active replication across multiple regions. So anyone can read and write from any region. This is why it's called active-active. Now you have two backup options. The first one is an automated backup. You need to enable point-in-time recovery for that, and you can restore your table to a new DynamoDB table for any point of time up to 35 days. Or if you want to have longer-term retention of backups, you can enable on-demand backups. It will also restore to a new table. Now you can export your DynamoDB table to Amazon S3 without using any of the read capacity units within the point-in-time recovery window, so within 35 days, using the export to S3 feature. And you can also import from S3 without using any write capacity units into a new table. So DynamoDB, from an exam perspective, anytime you see that you need to rapidly evolve schemas, you need to have a flexible type of database schema, is going to be a great choice. So the use cases for DynamoDB is when you want a database and do serverless application development, and your data are small documents, for example, in the hundreds of kilobytes of size maximum, or when you want a distributed serverless cache. Okay, so that's it for DynamoDB. I hope you liked it, and I will see you in the next lecture. So now let's do a summary of Amazon S3 from a database perspective. So S3 is a key value store for objects, and it's great when you want to store big objects. It's not great to store many small objects. So Amazon S3 is serverless, you have infinite scaling, the maximum object size is 5 terabytes, and you can version objects over time. You have different storage tiers, so you have S3 Standard, Infinite Access, Intelligent, and you have a Glacier, and if you want to transition between the tiers, you can use lifecycle policies. Some important features you need to know about are versioning, encryption, replication, multi-factor authentication delete, MFA delete, and access logs. In terms of security, you have IAM security, but you can also have bucket policies on top of your S3 buckets. You have ACL, you have access points for Amazon S3. Then you have S3 object lambdas to modify objects before they are sent to the applications. You have cores, and you have the concept of object lock or vault lock for Glacier, which you need to know about in depth. In terms of encryption mechanisms, we have different ones. We have SSE S3, SSE KMS, where you can bring your own KMS key. You have SSEC, you can do client-side encryption. You have encryption, TLS encryption in transit, and you can set a default encryption scheme for your S3 buckets. If you wanted to operate on all the files in Amazon S3 buckets at a time, you can use S3 batch to do batch operations. And this is very helpful, for example, when you want to encrypt unencrypted objects on an existing Amazon S3 bucket, or when you want to copy existing files from one bucket to another before enabling S3 replication. And to create this list of files, you can use S3 inventory, for example. In terms of performance improvements on Amazon S3, you can use a multi-part upload to upload files in a parallel way. You can have S3 transfer acceleration to transfer S3 files faster from one region to another region, and S3 select to only retrieve the data you need out of Amazon S3. For automation, you can use S3 event notifications that has interfaces with SNS, SQS, Lambda, and EventBridge, and this allows you to, for example, react to events where new objects are created on your Amazon S3 bucket. So the use cases for Amazon S3 are around static files. It's going to be a key value store for huge files or website hosting. So hopefully I'm not teaching you anything new here.
É social media.
Of these features, and they can all appear at the exam.
Uma startup quer que você ajude social media. Social media é o Neptune. que
Now let's talk about
resolve o
DocumentDB.
problema que o social
So the
media
same way
tem,
we
que
have
é
Aurora as the way for
banco
AWS
de
to
dados
implement
em
a sort of big
grafo.
cloud-native version of PostgreSQL and MySQL, we have DocumentDB, which is an Aurora
Todas
version
as
for
vezes que eu
MongoDB.
vi uma
So
questão de
MongoDB,
banco
if you
de
don't know, it's the
dados
logo on the top right
falando
corner of the
sobre
screen.
rede
It is
social, a
another NoSQL
resposta
database,
era o
and you need to remember this
Neptune.
for the exam. So DocumentDB is a NoSQL database, and it's based on top of the MongoDB technology. So it's compatible with MongoDB. So MongoDB is used to store, query, and index JSON data. And you have the same similar deployment concept as Aurora with DocumentDB. So that means it's a fully managed database, it's highly available, data is replicated across 3 availability zones, and DocumentDB storage automatically will grow in increments of 10 gigabytes. And DocumentDB has been engineered so it can scale to workloads with millions of requests per second. So at the exam, if you see anything related to MongoDB, think DocumentDB, or if you see anything related to NoSQL databases, think DocumentDB and also DynamoDB. That's it for this lecture. I hope you liked it, and I will see you in the next lecture. Now let's talk about Amazon Neptune. Neptune is a fully managed graph database. So an example of what a graph dataset would be, for example, something we all know, which is a social network. So if you look at a social network, people are friends, they like, they connect, they read, they comment, and so on. So users have friends, posts will have comments, comments have likes from users, user shares and like posts, and so all these things are interconnected, and so they create a graph. And so this is why Neptune is a great choice of database when it comes to graph datasets. So Neptune has replication across 3 AZ, up to 15 read replicas. It's used to build and run applications that are going to be with highly connected datasets, so like a social network. And because Neptune is optimized to run queries that are complex and hard on top of these graph datasets. You can store up to billions of relations on the database and query the graph with milliseconds latency. It's highly available with replication across multiple availability zones, and it's also great for storing knowledge graphs. For example, the Wikipedia database is a knowledge graph because all the Wikipedia articles are interconnected with each other, fraud detection, recommendations engine, and social networking. So coming from an exam perspective, anytime you see anything related to graph databases, think no more than Neptune. Now, Amazon Neptune also has a feature called Neptune Streams. So streams in Amazon Neptune are going to be a real-time ordered sequence of data for every change that happens within your graph data in your Neptune database. So that means that whenever an application is writing to Amazon Neptune, then the changes will be available immediately after writing into that Neptune streams. So in that stream, you have no duplicates and a strict ordering of changes happening within your Neptune cluster. So in a graph, we have writes, and these writes are written, of course, to your Neptune cluster, but also to a Neptune stream. Now, this stream data is accessible using an HTTP REST API. That means that your applications, for example, that want to read your Neptune stream, can use this API to get all the changes in real time. So the use cases for enabling Neptune streams are, for example, to send notifications whenever some changes are made within your graph data, or to maintain your data synchronized into another data store. For example, you want to replicate the changes happening within your Neptune cluster into Amazon S3 or OpenSearch or Elasticache or more. Or if you want to replicate the data across multiple regions for your Neptune cluster by looking at all the changes in the stream and rewriting those into a target Neptune cluster. Okay, so that's it for this lecture. I hope you liked it, and I will see you in the next lecture. So now let's talk about Amazon Key Spaces. And Key Spaces is a managed Apache Cassandra on AWS. So Cassandra is an open source NoSQL distributed database. And so with Key Spaces, you get Cassandra directly managed on the cloud by AWS.
Esse banco
So it's
de
going to
dados
be a
também,
serverless
Key
type of service,
Spaces,
it's
que é
scalable,
para
it's highly
o
available and fully
Cassandra.
managed by AWS, and it will automatically scale tables up and down based on the application's traffic. The tables
É banco de
data is going
dados
to be replicated
compatível
3
com
times across
Cassandra,
multiple AZ,
que é
and to perform your queries on top of Key
gerenciado.
Spaces, you're going to use the Cassandra Query Language or CQL.
E tem
So
todos
thanks to this,
esses
you're going to get
benefícios que estão
single-digit
escritos aqui no
millisecond
slide.
latency at any scale, and you can do thousands of requests per second. 2 capacity modes to note. This is just like DynamoDB. You have the on-demand mode, and then you have the provision mode with auto-scaling, and these are the same things as DynamoDB, really. You get encryption features, backup, point-in-time recovery up to 35 days, and so the use cases is going to be to store IoT device information, time series data, and generally from an exam perspective, anytime you see Apache Cassandra, you just think about Amazon Key Spaces and you're done. Okay, that's it for this short lecture. I hope you liked it, and I will see you in the next lecture. Now let's talk about Amazon QLDB, which stands for Quantum Ledger Database. So what is it? A ledger is a book recording financial transactions. And so QLDB is going to be just to have a ledger of financial transactions. It's a fully managed database, it's serverless, highly available, and has replication of data across 3 availability zones. And it's used to review history of all the changes made to your application data over time. That's why it's called a ledger. So it's an immutable system as well. That means that once you write something to the database, it cannot be removed or modified. And there's also a way to have a cryptographic signature to make sure that indeed nothing has been removed. So how does it work? Well, there is behind the scenes a journal. And so a journal has a sequence of modifications. And so anytime a modification is made, there is a cryptographic hash that is computed, which guarantees that nothing has been deleted or modified. And so this can be verified by anyone using the database. So this is extremely helpful for financial transactions because you want to make sure that obviously no financial transaction is disappearing from the database, which makes QLDB a great ledger database in the cloud. So you get 2 to 3 times better performance than common ledger blockchain frameworks, and also you can manipulate data using SQL. Now, as you'll see in the next lecture, there's also another database technology called Amazon Managed Blockchain, but the difference between QLDB and Managed Blockchain is that with QLDB, of decentralization, that means that there's just a central database owned that allows you to write this journal, okay? And this is in line with many financial regulation rules. So the difference between
Serviço AWS para migrar banco de dados MongoDB que provê migrar para a nuvem, banco de dados MongoDB que provê alta escalabilidade e disponibilidade, sem fazer nenhuma alteração no código. Documento DB. Companhia usa o Cassandra Database, que é migrar para a nuvem. É Keyspace. Vamos ler o anunciado. Uma empresa de pagamento está usando a AWS para hostear a infraestrutura. Pela natureza da aplicação, eles precisam ter eles têm um requisito restrito para armazenar em um banco de dados confiável de transações financeiras, como crédito e débito, e essas transações devem ser armazenadas de forma segura, imutável e em storage criptografado, que pode ser verificado pode ser criptograficamente verificado. Só tem um banco aqui dessa lista com essas características, que é o Quantum Ledger Database. vamos ler qual é esse problema e como que a gente vai solucionar ele. Uma startup está trabalhando no desenvolvimento de um novo projeto para reduzir queima nas florestas e que podem impactar mudanças climáticas. A startup está desenvolvendo sensores espalhados. Já vou adiantando, a resposta provavelmente, dadas essas palavras do início, respondendo igual o ChatGPT praticamente, dadas essas palavras do início, a resposta seria, eu acho que é o time stream. Grande probabilidade da resposta é o time stream. Sensores espalhados ao redor da floresta inteira, fazendo leitura de temperatura, umidade, pressão, para ajudar a detectar queimadas nas florestas. Tem. Não, acho que não é mais o time stream, acho que está mais pro Elasticache. Temperatura, umidade, pressão, milhares de sensores para armazenar milhares de leituras por segundo. Esses são requisitos de armazenar em locais que pode ser utilizada rapidamente para analytics, em grande quantidade de leituras, muitas leituras por segundo, para poder predizer quando vai ter fogo. Qual serviço da AWS você usaria para armazenar? No final a palavra mágica, armazenar essas leituras. Tá meio confuso. Não é o Neptune nem o TimeStream. Armazenar pode ser o S3, mas precisa ter acesso a grande quantidade de leituras, que vai do Elasticache. Não. Então vou pensando no armazenar. Não. TimeStream? Tava certo desde o início. Acertei 70%, aí é bem próximo de passar se isso fosse a prova. Estou vendo aqui se tem mais algum outro tópico de banco de dados em outro módulo, que já vamos direto. Tem sim, mas já respondi antes. Que é o que faz fazer uma revisão da parte básica de banco de dados, que seria o que foi avaliado na outra certificação. Tem histórias de container? Container já foi também? Até o momento não tem mais nada de banco de dados, então fechamos o tópico de banco de dados da prova de arquiteto de soluções da AWS. Então, obrigado por assistir e até o próximo vídeo.